Good morning, everyone. So today's class is going to be a little bit more core focused. We're going to go through our general joint mobility assessment, pain, feet, hips, spine, shoulders, neck. And then the last end of class, we're going to get into some of what I kind of consider primal core work. It's really my primal basic. It's stripping down some core movements, floor-based core movements to their simplest form, building a flow pattern out of them. They look really simple. They're actually very, very complex, and they're some of the more challenging core exercises that you can do. So when we get to that level, I'm going to teach it in progressions. So, starting at the simplest progression, and then I'll be building layers. If you find there's a point where you can't do the progression, then that means the earlier progressions are really the areas that you're going to get the most bang for your buck. Don't try to force the later things I'm teaching. Stick with what you're able to do. And as you work on those for a week, up to 4 weeks, you'll find that the next progression becomes available. So I don't want to force progressions. I want to work very much with the layer in which we are challenged, but not unable to do. Build strength at that layer, and then we can work to the next progression. So with all that, let's get started. So anytime we do core work, I always want to start with some breath work to kind of activate that intrinsic core. We're going to start with our crocodile breath, making nice big C shapes with our hands. Hands are going below the rib cage and above the hip bone in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. Thumbs are in the back, feeling into our low back musculature. Index fingers are wrapping around to the front to feel into the abdominal musculature, and palms are pressing into the side body. I want to feel all 3 points of contact: low back, abdominals, and side body oblique musculature. And we're going to think like a crocodile or like we're inflating a balloon. We're going to take nice, slow inhale through the nose. As we breathe in, feel that abdominal wall expand out, pushing into the thumbs, index fingers, and palms. So I want that breath moving forward into the belly, into the low back, and out through the sides. And then as we exhale, breathing out through our mouth, drawing that navel up and into our spine. And again, I want nice, slow inhale, nice, slow exhale. And I don't want to blow the balloon up big right off the bat. I want to start small with each breath, with each breath expanding a little bit more, so that when we get to our 5th, 6th breath, maybe 7th and 8th breath, we're really working to get that balloon to expand as big as possible. So finding that nice space, starting with slow inhale in through the nose, full exhale out through the mouth. As you exhale, allow the hands to cinch down so that you create a little bit more resistance for your inhale breath to push into. And as you're getting a few breaths in, start to notice, where does that breath expand well, and where does it expand not as much? For most people, it will expand well into the belly, pushing forward, but it may not expand as much into the low back or out through the sides. If you're finding that's the case, see if you can bring that focus of your breath into that low back or side body space. Again, breathing into your hand, that hand becomes kind of a kinesthetic cue so that you can focus that breath to move into that space. The next thing to kind of pay attention to is, do you breathe better into your right hand, or do you breathe better into your left hand? Maybe you feel more breath moving into that right side thumb, but you don't feel it moving into the left side thumb. That's going to be something really important when we're thinking about balance of our breath related to our core. We'll get 1 or 2 more nice slow breaths, expanding as big as we can. And exhaling full all the way out. And then we're very slowly going to shift, coming up into a seated position. We're now going to get into our nice wide V-sit. Getting legs splayed as wide as possible. Knees are actively reaching down to the floor. The feet are actively pulling back like you're trying to touch your shins. The more you reach through that floor, through the knees, you should feel your quads kind of engage. Hands are coming down behind your hips, grounding into the floor. We're going to spiral those elbow pits out and away so that we feel the shoulder blades pack down and back. Sternum lifts up, nice tall spine. And we're focusing on rotation in the hips. So we're going to pay attention to our kneecaps. Nice inhale. As we exhale, we're rolling the knees out like you're trying to touch the floor to the outside of your body. We'll inhale as we come back to the center, and then exhale as we rotate in like you're trying to touch the kneecaps to the inside of the body. Go very slow with breath. We're seeing how much can we encourage that external rotation without forcing it, and how far can we go internal. And this becomes a good assessment point, noticing those kneecaps. How far does the right kneecap travel externally compared to the left kneecap? How far do they travel internally compared to one another? Does one side travel farther in one direction more so than the other direction? That's a big assessment point that will be related to our gait mechanics. So I want to kind of pay attention to that. And if there is an imbalance, see if 5-10 reps encourages a little bit more balance. Can we get into that side that doesn't move as well and get it to move a little bit better? And now we're going to start to bring this into some ankle circles, to kind of floss through the ankles. As we spiral the kneecaps out, again, still trying to touch the floor with the knees. We can then point the toes, spiral the knees back in as we pull the toes back. I want to pay attention to any kind of like cramp or Charlie horse feel in the arch of the foot. If you're feeling that, then don't force that, especially that press through the toes. Stay light and easy on it. If you're not getting that sensation, we can actually add some flex of the toes as you point. And then as you pull back, try to spread the toes as wide as you can. And then we're going to reverse directions of our ankles, rolling them to the opposite direction, going in that opposite circle. Notice if one ankle feels tighter, more restricted. Maybe you feel it more in one of the feet. Do you feel it more to the outside of the ankle? Do you feel it more to the inside of the ankle, or maybe it's on the back of the calf? Again, those are all relevant bits of information that are helpful as far as like figuring out what's going on in gait mechanics, especially if there's a pain issue taking place. All right, we're going to come back to our starting point, staying wide. Knees are actively moving down. Tops of the feet are reaching to the shins. We're going to bring hands off the floor, and we're going to get into a little bit of light folds. Feeling into that back line of the legs, hamstring area, back of the knees, and low back. Nice inhale into that crocodile breath. Exhale, let those hands slide forward evenly. Inhale brings us all the way back up. And when I'm folding here, I want to avoid dropping my head straight down to the floor or my chest straight to the floor. I want a nice tall spine. Those hands are just sliding, and I'm seeing how far can I go maintaining my spine. I also want to keep my hands and my shoulders square together. I don't want to reach one hand further. That means my shoulders aren't staying square, so I want to keep those hands even. And we can now start to go a little bit off center. By doing so, I want to turn shoulders, again, keeping hands square with shoulders. Nice reach. Inhale as we come back, and then the same thing, moving side to side. I'm continuing to keep those knees actively reaching to the floor. I'm continuing to pull those toes, tops of my feet, like I'm folding them back to my shin. Notice if one side is tighter than the other side. And where do you feel it? Do you feel it more in the hamstrings, back of the knees, down into the calves, or in the low back? Do you feel it more on the right side or the left side? And we can continue to kind of open up our side to side reach, reaching all the way out to the heels. Again, noticing that difference side to side. Once we feel a little balanced on that, we're going to bring hands back down to the floor, grounding palms. And at this point, we can bring our legs in into a nice, comfortable cross sit. Still got the palms grounded. Elbows are spiraled out. Shoulder blades are packed down and back. Sternum is lifting up to the ceiling. Nice, tall spine. And we're going to get into some neck mobility, starting with checking our blind spots. Nice inhale through the nose, exhale as we slowly look over our right shoulder, squeezing into it. Inhale as we come back to center, and exhale, looking over our left shoulder, nice and slow. Now I want to reach from my chin and not my forehead. So I don't want my head to tilt as I rotate. I want to see how far can I get the end of my chin over the crest of the shoulder out to the side. Can I get to that shoulder and even a little bit beyond with my chin? Notice how does it feel looking over the left shoulder compared to the right shoulder? Does one side feel tighter, more restricted, more challenging to get into? Are you able to go as far? I have what feels like better range of motion going over my right shoulder. My left shoulder feels a little bit tighter and more restricted, but maybe only about 5 degrees of difference. It's not a huge difference. It's minor, and I feel it up high in my neck. So again, noticing those differences are going to be relevant. Next, we're going to get into our light tilt and lift. So I want to very lightly tilt the head like I'm dropping my ear to my shoulder, but it's not a heavy drop. I don't want to push all the way down. Just light drop, opposite ear lifting up to the ceiling like you got a piece of string attached to it, or like you're trying to touch your ear to the ceiling. As you're lifting that ear, you can also lightly downwardly press through that grounded palm. Inhale as we come to the center. Exhale as we lift, tilt and lift that opposite side. Working side to side. Again, noticing does one side feel tighter, stiffer, harder to get into than the other side. So interesting thing, my left rotation was tighter, but my tilt and lift is tighter on the right side. A little bit less range of motion. Again, I want to work into it lightly. I don't want to be forceful with it. I want to see if just getting some groove, some lubrication into those joints starts to free the movement up, and I can get a little bit more balance. We'll come back to our center, and now we're going to get into our glide. So with glide, I want to keep my cheekbones on the same plane. I don't want my one cheekbone to be higher than the other. I also want to avoid rotation, so I'm not turning my head. I want to keep my face perfectly forward as I glide my ear across to my left shoulder, and then glide across to the right shoulder. Inhale as we come to the center, exhale as we glide across. This is a challenging movement to do if you're not familiar with it. It's helpful to do it in front of a mirror. It took me several weeks to gain access. Just I think it was my right side was, I just could not do it. I could move to the left and I couldn't go anywhere to the right. I had to look into a mirror for several weeks working on this to slowly gain access to that right side. And the right side still feels a little tight today. Last for neck mobility is we're going to do some shallow neck rolls. So again, palms are still grounded. I want to keep those shoulders nice and packed. We'll let our chin drop lightly to our chest. This is not deep. From here, we let our right ear roll to our right shoulder. Again, light roll. I don't want to try to push it all the way down. Our gaze comes up toward the ceiling. Left ear lightly towards the left shoulder, and then chin back down to the chest. And we'll continue to move through those 4 points and slowly smooth them out into a circle. And as we are smoothing it out, we can take those shallow rolls and start to make them more deep, as long as it is not painful. Continuing nice slow inhales through the nose and nice slow exhales out through the mouth. And once we do about 5 rotations in one direction, we'll come back to our center and we're going to start over going the opposite direction, starting shallow again. I don't want to start at depth. So chin to chest, left ear shallow to left shoulder, gaze comes up to the ceiling, right ear shallow to the right shoulder, and then chin back down to the chest. And again, continue to smooth those 4 points out into a circle. And as you're doing so, you can slowly sink a little deeper into the groove of that roll, as long as it is not painful. Good. Now we're going to move into our shin box position. I am in my left side shin box. My left hand is down, grounded to the outside of my hip. I want to spiral that elbow pit out and away so that I feel my chest open up, that shoulder blade packed down and back, nice tall spine. I'm also shifting my weight over onto my left hip so that the right hip is off the ground. I don't want to try to push that right hip down. From here, we're going to start with just our simple knee openers. Nice inhale into that crocodile breath. On the exhale, as we draw that navel up and in, we're lifting our knee up to the ceiling nice and slow. Inhale, bringing it back down. Now, as we're lifting that knee, I want to stay as still and controlled in my upper body. I don't want my shoulders to roll open with my knee to give my knee more clearance. I want to isolate this hip and see how much mobility do I have in that hip with a fixed upper body. And notice, how does it feel, tightness at the hip? How high are you able to lift that knee? Once we get 5 reps, we can very slowly do a windshield wiper across to the other side. Again, pack shoulder, spiraled or grounded palm, pack shoulder, spiraled elbow. Weight is shifted over. Nice tall spine. Opposite hip is off the ground. Inhale into that crocodile breath. Exhale as we slowly lift that knee. Oh, and left hip is tighter than the right hip. I don't have quite as much mobility on this side right now. And again, I don't want to force it. I want to stay slow. I'm moving up to the point where I have control without changing my upper body position, squeezing into it, seeing if just doing a few reps gets me a little bit more mobility. Now, this movement I like to do twice because usually when I do it the first time, it's a little stiff. So we're going to go back across to the other side and we're going to do 5 reps on both sides again. So Again, packed palm, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, weight shift. Inhale into the belly, exhale as we slowly lift that hip knee up to the ceiling. Inhale, letting it back down. Now, more than likely, you're noticing you have a little bit more range of motion the second time around, maybe 10, 15 degrees more than you did. It's not a huge amount, but it's significant. And once we get to 5, we'll come back again to the other side. Grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, weight shifted, tall spine. Inhale into the crocodile, exhale, navel to spine as we slowly lift that knee. And I got a good amount more. My left knee is now, or left hip is pretty close to my right hip. It's always a little bit tighter in the left, but my goal is to get balance, as close to balance as possible in both sides, in order to have that balance in my day. Once we get to 5, slow transition back to the other side. Again, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine, weight is shifted. Now we're going to bring that inhale breath into the bowl of our back hip. So as I inhale, I want to feel the weight of that breath move into the bowl of this back hip. And that back hip is going to drop, reaching to the floor, seeing if it can touch the floor. I want to do this, though, without shifting my weight into it. My weight is still remaining on my front hip. I'm simply seeking the floor with that back hip without shifting into it. On the exhale, we're drawing navel up and into the spine as we lift that hip off the floor. We move that hip forward like you're trying to touch your hip bone. If you put your hand in front, you're trying to touch that hip bone so that we get an extended hip. And then we're scooping into it. Imagine your sacrum, your tailbone is scooping forward. You're trying to reach that tailbone as far forward as you can. Inhale, fills up that bowl, reaches it to the floor. Exhale, off the floor, reaches forward and scoops into it. The more you're able to get this hip into extension, you should feel some stretch, length stretch in the front of the hip, contraction in the glute. If you're not feeling that stretch in the front, it probably means you're not getting that hip forward, and you may not be scooping. One thing that people tend to do is they tend to reach with their rib cage, and the hip doesn't move, but they're getting a whole lot of movement, but it's mostly coming from the ribs. I want it to come from the hip. Then we'll slowly transition across to the other side. We're going to do the same thing. This one is an excellent movement to assess side to side. So again, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine, weight is shifted. Inhale into that back bowl without shifting weight into it. And then exhale, lift, reach forward with the hip bone, and then actively scoop into it. Inhale, fills up that bowl as it drops it to the floor. Now, left hip is tighter. My hip, it doesn't go quite as close to the floor. It also not quite as much extension. I got a lot more tightness through the front of the hip. But as I do 3 to 5 reps, I can already feel it opening up, giving me a little bit more access. And this would be another movement that doing it 2 times through would probably give me even better results. But we are gonna do this a second time. We're gonna add a layer to it. So we'll come back to the other side. Doing the exact same thing, still grounded palm, weight is shifted. We're breathing into that back hip. But now as we exhale and scoop, I want to lock in that scoop. Now we're going into our rotation. So imagine that you have a piece of bread and you want to hand some of that bread off to Skeletor in the corner. Really, I want to kind of reach through the arrow of the knee. So as I reach, I'm reaching straight through that knee. I like to spread my hand wide, extend the elbow fully, and then spiral the palm up to the ceiling, maintaining that. That tends to bring this nice tension into the upper body and shoulder. And then I'm also trying to reach and extend those fingers as far forward as I can. Inhale, we're bringing it all the way back. I'm unwinding the hand. Breath comes into that back bowl of the pelvis. Exhale, hip comes up, scoop, lock in that hip. Exhale into our spiral and rotation. Now, I want to avoid, as I reach and rotate, I don't want to reach forward with my shoulders. My shoulders are really kind of locked into this grounded palm. So really what I like to focus on is I'm almost driving through this back knee as I scoop, and I'm seeing how far can I get my fingertips away from that knee. Reach, spiral, spread all at the same time, and then I'm rotating into it. I'm not leaning. This is a rotation. And we'll slowly bring that all the way across to the other side. In grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, weight shifted. Inhale into that back hip bowl. Exhale, lift, scoop actively. Feel that light stretch, active glute, and then spiral rotation. Spread hand, extend elbow, spiral palm up to the ceiling. Inhale brings it all the way back. Now, whichever hip was tighter in our first two movements in shin box, more than likely when we lock that hip in, it's also tighter in rotation. So my left hip is generally tighter. This rotation feels considerably tighter than it was on the other side. So this is an important movement for me to practice, not just now, but also probably throughout the day, because this is an area in which I lose mobility. And if I can move in rotation through my spine in one side and not in the other, that is going to impact my gait mechanics pretty significantly. I'm also noticing this hip was stiffer at first and is slowly starting to move better. We'll come back to our starting side. Now we're going to take this back hand off the floor. I want to have shoulders square with our shins and our hands square with our shoulders. Continuing to breathe into that back bowl of the pelvis. So all the other stuff is going to be the same. So as we inhale, feel the weight move into that back bowl, reaching it to the floor. On the exhale, that hip lifts up, reaches forward and scoops. I want to lock in that back hip. And then we're getting into a nice fold, reaching through that shin, both hands nice and even as we exhale. Inhale, coming all the way back up, feeling that breath dropping into that back bowl. Exhale, lift, scoop. Again, lock in that hip as we fold forward. Now on this one, just like with our V-sit, I want to make sure we're not dropping the head straight down, dropping the chest straight down. I want to maintain nice tall spine, seeing how far can my hands slide forward. Inhale, bringing it all the way back up. Once we get 5 reps, we're going to slowly transition to the other side. Again, shoulders are square with the shin. Inhale, fill up that back bowl, feel it low, reach to the floor. Exhale, that hip lifts, reaches forward, actively scoops, and then both hands reaching even with shoulders, keeping square. Inhale brings it all the way back up. Now notice, how does it feel on this side compared to the other side? Does it feel more challenging to stay square, keep your shoulders and your hands square to your shin? Do you feel your body wants to go off center of one side more so than the other? Do you feel more tightness in that back hip as you scoop into it? My left hip is generally tighter, so this is a harder side for me. Do you feel more stretch in the back of your front hip? My right glute, because my left front hip is tight, my right glute is also tight in this position, more so than it is on the opposite side. So again, these are really helpful assessment points. So now we're going to start moving side to side into these folds. Now, as I move side to side, I'm now less concerned about maintaining square shoulders with my shins, and we can start to be a little bit more exploratory. So I can reach straight forward through that shin. I can reach through the knee. I can come out beyond the knee, or I can even reach against the grain. And we're going to do whatever we do on the left side, we're going to move across to the right side. And I'm going to give you a couple transition options. So one transition is a nice, slow windshield wiper. We're going to start with one leg opening up as far as it will go. And once it gets to its maximum, imagine it's got a piece of string that just got taut to the opposite side. So it's now going to pull that opposite side with until we get all the way through. I want to maintain that tension in that string. So this knee is also pulling as I move across. Once we get to the other side, we get into a nice fold. Inhale, and again, nice slow opening. Once it gets maximum, it gets taut on that string, it pulls across. My opposite side is trying to maintain that tension in the string until this knee hits the ground. So that is option one. Option two is a thread through. So once I get to my side, I'm going to lift that opposite leg. I'm spiraling it around, threading it underneath the front leg, and then the front leg lifts, spirals around to become the back leg. And from here, I can get my nice fold, inhale, and do the same thing coming back. I like the thread through because it adds a little bit more mobility and core control, especially if I'm moving slowly, really making sure that I own and control my movement. It also helps keep us facing the same way. If you have a yoga mat, it's nice to just be able to face the same direction and not feel like you're moving off your mat all the time. Once we get a good 3 to 5 reps, we're going to now start to open up our shin box. So as I come in and I get open up, instead of coming to my regular shin box, I want to slide that leg a little bit more open into that fold. And however open I am on one side, I want to do the same thing on the other side. And with each one, we're going to slowly start to open that leg up more and more. Going slow, I'd like to do about 10, even up to 20 reps. This is a really nice little flow to get into. It'll really open up the hips. And as I continue to open up that back leg, I'm getting closer and closer to what we would consider a yoga class pigeon pose. Although I am not overly concerned about hitting that end range pigeon pose, I like it as an ideal. I like moving towards it. But if it's something that my body cannot do right now, I don't want to force it. So I'm working closer and closer, kind of finding how How long can I get? How far back can I get that back leg? And I'm really just continuing to assess, how does it feel on the right side that is different than how it feels on the left side? Because those differences in tension, tightness, restriction, control are very relevant to our motor behaviors and things that we can work on to address in order to get better movement quality. All right. So now we're going to, I was going to do, didn't do shin box to knees yesterday. All right. So now we're going to get into one of our first kind of more core specific exercises. This is shin box to knees. Shin box to knees can be a little tough on your knees if you have knee issues. I have knee issues. So be slow, be safe, pay attention to your body on this. I always like to start with grooving it in using my hands to make sure that the knees are safe and can actually do the movement. So we're going to start using hands. One hand will go behind your front knee, the other hand in front, and we're simply helping assist as we come up to knees. As I get to the top of the knees, I want a light scoop so that I feel some stretch through the front of the hips. And then I'm using my hands, back hand, front hand, to ease back down, making sure there's no pain, no crunchiness, nothing that feels uncomfortable. And then we'll come across and do the same thing on the other side. Nice, slow push and pull as we come up to our knees. And again, nice scoop through the front, and then front hand, back hand comes to help make sure we can get back down. If we can do shin box to knees without too much trouble, then we can start to see if we can do it without our hands. Without hands, I'm using both knees. I'm pushing into the floor and I'm scooping my tailbone to lift up tall. Again, I want to kind of feel that stretch. And then on the way down, I'm not just dropping and plopping. I'm reaching my tailbone back and I'm seeing how far can I get my tailbone to reach before it kisses the ground. I don't want to drop to the ground. I really want to see if I can barely touch the ground and I'm touching as far back behind me as possible. Once I feel that kiss, I'm then driving, scooping. Nice reach. We can also add a counter reach. Using hands will give you a little bit more balance, which will allow you to reach further with the hips. And then again, nice drive through the knees as we scoop forward. The more you can reach back, creating that counter reach, you should feel a nice eccentric stretch in the front, in the glute of the leg, the knee that is in front. And once we do 5 on this side, we'll do the same thing on the other side. So again, driving through both knees, scooping up, getting that nice action, feel that stretch, and then reaching back, reaching that tailbone, sliding it backwards. Once it kisses the floor, driving through those knees, feeling that scoop. Again, adding in our counter reach will give us a little bit more reach of that tailbone, which will give us a little bit more of that eccentric stretch into that glute. Notice if one side feels harder to do than the other side. Maybe one side feels tighter, you get a bigger stretch, or maybe it just burns a little bit more. That can be an indication of some imbalance in the glutes, which is a big reason why I love that exercise. It's very glute specific. All right, we're going to come up into our quadruped position, hands and knees, spreading fingers wide, grounding palms, extending elbows fully, and we're going to tuck the toes in the back. In fact, I want to specifically tuck the big toe by lightly turning the heels in towards each other. And we're trying to get that big toe tucked underneath as much as possible. So with the heels turned in, we're going to take a nice inhale into that crocodile breath. And on the exhale, we're letting our hips sink into our heels, feeling the weight of the hips specifically load into that big toe and arch of the foot. Inhale brings us back forward. As you exhale, reaching back, imagine you have a tail and you're reaching it up to the ceiling. So tailbone is going to be turning upwards lightly. That should add a little bit more stretch feel into the ball of the foot and arch. Now notice, how does this feel on the right big toe compared to the left big toe? Does one side feel tighter, stiffer, achier, more restricted? Is it painful? If it is painful, then back off. I don't want to elevate into levels of pain that are a 3 or above on a scale of 0 to 10. But I do want to notice if there's a difference in the right big toe and the left big toe. Next, we're going to let those heels turn out as far as they can go, seeing if we can get tucked underneath, out through the other 4 toes, into that pinky toe. Everything else is going to be the same though. Inhale forward, exhale, stick the tail up to the ceiling as you feel the weight of the hips drop into your heels. Inhale as we bring it back up. Again, notice the difference of how this feels through the left side compared to the right side. My left foot feels a little tighter and more restricted, especially 3rd, 4th, and 5th toes compared to the right side, which might have something to do with the tightness in my hips. Once we get to the 5th one, as we sink back, I don't want to go into maximum tension. I kind of want to go into light tension. I can feel it in my feet, but it's not heavy. And we're going to do windshield wipers with the heels, rolling the heels in towards each other so that we're loaded more into the big toe joint, and then rolling the heels out so that we're loaded into the pinky toe joint, and moving back and forth. Noticing how does it feel on the right side compared to the left side. Again, as we move into that big toe, is it more sensitive on one foot than it is on the other foot? It's very relevant, especially when it comes to our gait mechanics. All right, we're going to come back to our starting point of just simple quadruped, and now we're going to start getting into some pelvic tilts. We're going to pelvic tilts and then some spinal waves. And we're going to start with our breath. So nice inhale in through the nose. As you inhale, allow that breath to move down into the belly. Allow the pelvis to tilt to the floor so that we get a sway in our low back. On the exhale, we're drawing that navel up and we're scooping. But I don't want that scoop to move into the upper back just yet. So we want to keep the back still. Inhale, sway in the back as the pelvis tilts to the floor. Exhale, scoop, so that we get that stretch largely into that low back area. Now I want to avoid pinch and pain on this. So if you have any kind of discomfort, move into it softly, safely, non-forcefully. I don't want to get into that level 3 or above. Really, I want to keep it down in that 1 or 2, which is just simply slight discomfort. Slight discomfort is a level of pain, so I need to pay attention to it, and I want to move slowly and safely through it. It is relevant if it's more sensitive as you extend, as you inhale, pelvis tilts to the floor. That's lumbar extension? Is that more sensitive than when you exhale and scoop, which is taking you into lumbar flexion? Now, as we're moving into this, now I want to start to free up the rest of the spine. So we're going to do what I call a spinal wave, where the wave is being generated from the pelvis. As you exhale and scoop, we're now going to allow it to continue to scoop and feel that scoop move up the one vertebrae at a time up the spine. As it gets to the shoulders, we're pressing through the palms and then we're allowing it to move over the top of the head. And at this point, we're trying to touch our tailbone and our forehead actively at this imaginary point in the middle. See if you notice your core light up on fire, and then we'll initiate inhale. Pelvis tilts down to the floor, and it's going to pull one vertebrae at a time. Lumbar, as it moves up into the shoulder, into the chest, the sternum is going to reach down to the floor, and the head is going to come up last. So tailbone starts the movement, initiates the movement, and then each vertebrae moves one at a time until it gets to the head, and the head moves last. This is going to make a spinal wave. You can think almost like, I like to think about this as the spine is a whip, the tailbone is the handle of the whip. So it is where the movement is being generated, and your head is the tail of the whip. So it moves last. Notice, are there any areas of the spine, particular segments where it feels a little tighter, more restricted? Good. All right. So now we're going to get into another core exercise I call tall kneel lean backs. And this is going to be one that, again, it gets a little bit, can be a little bit tough on knees and hips, especially if there's some knee and hip issues. So go into this lightly. It's also, we're going to require a decent amount of hip mobility and knee mobility. Generally, are you able to get into a deep kneel? If this is a difficult position, you're not going to be able to get all the way down into it. So we're going to go into this lightly. We're going to start with our toes tucked in our tall kneel position. And we're going to start with the same spinal waves we just did, starting with pelvic tilts and then working into that spinal wave. So a nice inhale into the nose. As we breathe in, we're filling up that belly, allowing the pelvis to tilt forward so that we get a sway in our back. And then exhale, navel to spine as we scoop. Going back and forth. If you get a little bit of a stretch, if it feels good, accentuate that stretch. If it's getting into discomfort, then don't force it. Play within where it feels comfortable to move. So this next part is where it's going to get a little tricky if you have hip and knee issues. So please go safely here. We're going to, as we inhale, filling up that belly, pelvis tilts back. We're going to let that tailbone reach like it's trying to reach for your heels. Dropping down as it gets to the heels. That's when we exhale, drawing navel in, initiating scoop, and we're going to continue to scoop so that our tailbone is what lifts us back up to tall. Once we get to tall, we're inhaling, tailbone reaches back for the heels, and scoop. As you get into this, you'll notice that, again, that handle of a whip, getting that spinal wave action moving through the spine. The pelvis, the tailbone, again, is the handle of that whip. And the head kind of moves last. Now we can do this movement, both toes tucked. You can also do it with the toes untucked. It's a little bit different with each one. Part of it might be different because you may have different levels of mobility within the knees or the hips or the ankles. It's also going to create a little bit different strain and stress through your quads. Good. All right. So once you got about 5 of our spinal waves, both toes tucked and toes untucked, we're going to tuck the toes again. And this is where we're getting into our tall kneel lean back. So we're going to take a breath in, allowing that belly to open up. Exhale, scoop. And we got to lock in that scoop. Notice how when you scoop, your rib cage kind of drops in, your core becomes engaged. I'm almost more in this, front. I'm a little closed in the front. I'm a little more open in my back. I want to avoid arching my back and getting a big sway in the back. I want to be scooped and locked in. And then from here, we're allowing a light lean back. I want to go easy because I want to make sure I don't go so far that I fall backwards. That would hurt. So I'm staying loaded, engaged through my feet as I slowly lean back. Inhale as I come forward. Exhale allows me to initiate more scoop. I want to stay active with that scoop, keep that core engaged. Again, I don't want to lean back and then start to arch my back. That's going to open up my core. I want to keep that core engaged. This is what we're working, loading through the quads into that low core. Once we get 5, we're going to untuck the toes, doing the same thing, but go easy because this is a different strain pattern through the quads. Active scoop. As we exhale, slow lean back. Inhale pulls us back forward. I like to kind of cross hands just to keep me more aware of my upper body and chest, making sure that I'm not opening up because I'm getting too much sway in the back. All right, so after 4 of those, you might notice quads a little bit juicy from that, which is good. We're going to get onto our back. And on our back, we're going to go place both feet nice and flat to the floor. I want to be grounded through our feet, nice spread toes, feeling the ball of the big toe, ball of the pinky toe, and heel evenly loaded into the floor. And we're going to come back into those same pelvic tilts. We're going to play with that same spinal wave from this position. So nice inhale into the belly, lifts the belly up to the ceiling. We get a big sway in the low back. I can slide my hands underneath my back. Exhale, imagine the belly button like a thumb, pressing the spine down into the floor. Inhale, that thumb lifts and reaches up to the ceiling. Exhale, presses down. I want the press of that spine into the floor to come from my belly and not my feet. I don't want to lift my hips in order to push my spine down. I want it to all come from exhale breath. My feet are actually grounded but fairly soft, at least for now. And here in a second, we're going to actually engage into the feet. But the first thing is feeling that pelvic mobility. And now I want to start working that segmental action of the spine. So as we exhale, belly presses into the floor, feet will now engage grounded feet, and we're going to scoop our tailbone, and we're going to continue to scoop. And I want to reach that tailbone like I'm trying to touch the ceiling, but I want to do it so that it starts to lift each vertebrae one at a time, starting with the sacrum. So starting with that inhale, exhale, back goes flat, feet engaged, scoop, feel the sacrum lift. L5 is still touching. Then the L5 lifts, but the L4 is still touching. Then L3, L2, L1, until we get into this nice hip bridge. And once I'm in this hip bridge, I still want to actively scoop from that tailbone so that I can feel my glutes. And then on the way down, we're going to feel each vertebrae touching the floor one at a time. L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, sacrum. And then we lift, feeling that sway in the back, belly up to the ceiling, and then exhale. Can you feel each vertebrae lift one at a time? And you replace each vertebrae one at a time. Now, we have a natural lordotic curve, which will make it difficult for you to feel your L3, L4, and L5 touch the floor segmentally. That's not unusual. It can improve. I am able to feel each vertebrae one at a time, but when I first started this, I didn't. It took several weeks of really working on this to gain that mobility and that segmental mobility of my spine. And that segmental mobility is your birthright. If you cannot do it, that is something that we want to work on, because our spines are supposed to be mobile and stable. If it's an immobile spine, it's got too much stability. If it's got, then we also are working in the stability part, and that's what we're going to get into in a little bit. All right. So on our next exhale, as we get to the top, we're going to stay at the top, and we're going to bring that same breath and pelvic tilt that we started with on the floor, but we're going to do it with the hips elevated. So as you inhale, let that belly open up to the ceiling, pelvis tilts forward, we get a sway in our low back, and then exhale, navel into spine as we scoop. I want to go back and forth a good 6 to 8 breaths. As we're inhaling and exhaling, I want to keep driving through your grounded feet. Keep your hips elevated. Don't let them start to drop. Hips stay at the same position as you inhale to exhale. And if you're able to maintain that position, and each exhale, you're really turning that tailbone like you're trying to touch the ceiling, keeping that core engaged, you'll start to notice those glutes really light up on fire. And we'll let the hips back down to the floor. Now we're going to flip over onto our belly. So this is where we're getting into more of our core series. I'm going to start with just simple elbow push-ups to kind of prime our plank position. I don't like holding planks for time. I like moving in and out of planks. I love the plank position. It's incredibly important, especially if you're doing push-ups, pull-ups, and a lot of other skills. But holding a plank for a minute or more, I consider kind of a silly exercise, because it really doesn't replicate a lot of things that we do naturally in sports, athletics, and life. So we're going to start on our belly. Arms are out to the side, palms are down. We're going to spiral our palms up, pulling our elbows into our sides. I don't want my arms going underneath my chest. My chest is still on the floor. I'm pulling my elbows in. And really what I'm doing is I'm bringing that bony prominence on the inside of my elbow, the medial epicondyle. I'm pulling it in so that it's touching the side of my rib cage right here. Again, I don't want it underneath. I want it out to the sides. Palms will be up. So as I pull elbows in, palms are up, forearms are flush with the floor. We're going to tuck the toes and actively lift the knees off the floor like you're trying to touch the ceiling. You should feel your glutes start to engage. I also want to lightly scoop the tailbone towards the floor. The more we lift the knees and scoop the tailbone, your glutes should be active and on. From here, we'll take a nice breath in, and on our exhale, we're going to spiral our palms down to the floor as we push through the elbows, maintaining the active knees and scoop. Inhale, we're spiraling the palms back up as we pull the elbows back to our ribs. And we'll do 5 of these. Exhale, push, inhale, pull. Once we get 5, we're going to roll over onto our back. We're going to let the legs go straight. Feet are going to be about hip width apart. Toes straight up to the ceiling. Upper body, I'm going to point to the ceiling and let the shoulders lift as high as they can. And then I want to spread the upper back and engage. And I want you to imagine you're trying to feel as much of your surface area of your upper back and shoulders spreading and grounding, pressing into the floor. I'm actively pushing down through my shoulders so that I feel really solid on the floor. Feet are pressing down, shoulders are pressing down. We're going to take a nice, this is going to where we're going to get into something a little bit more challenging. So we're going to take a nice inhale, and on our exhale, we're drawing navel into the spine. We are scooping the tailbone up and lifting so that the only thing touching the floor are shoulders and heels. And then inhale, we can let the hip back down, letting that pelvis tilt to let it touch. Exhale, scoop as we press through those heels, keeping shoulders engaged. Inhale, brings it right back to the floor. Once we do 5, let the hips rest, and we're going to flip back over onto our belly. So we're going to get into that same starting position. Palms out, turning the palms up as we pull our elbows in, toes tucked, knees lifted, glutes are active. But instead of pushing up into a full plank, we're going to do basically what we just did on our back. Inhale, let the belly really open up to the floor, pelvis tilt so that we get a little sway in the back. And then we're exhaling and scooping and lifting so that the only thing off touching the floor are elbows to forearms into our hands and our toes. So knees are already off the floor. So as I scoop and lift, I'm holding a low plank. Inhale, I can allow it to come back down to the floor. Exhale, lift. Inhale, brings it back down. Again, once we get to 5, we're going to go ahead and flip on over. So that was the basic starting point. We're now going to start adding layers to those movements as we build them together. So coming back to my back, toes are straight up to the ceiling, actively pushing into the heels. Shoulders, upper back is spread and grounded. Now, as we lift, hips are off the floor. I'm going to drive one elbow. I'm actually pulling that elbow, that medial epicondyle, towards my rib, and I'm pressing that shoulder into the floor so that I can roll onto my side. My hips are going to stack. My feet are going to turn so that I'm on the sides, but I'm keeping my hips off the ground. The only thing touching the floor, shoulders, upper arm, feet. Inhale, I'm rolling back onto my back, and then I'm doing the same thing to the other side. Pulling elbow in, driving up onto the side of my shoulder, hips stack, sides of the feet, hips are off the ground. Seeing if we can go side to side. Nice and slow, under control. Again, these might look simple, but they are getting more and more complicated. And these are some of the more challenging core exercises that I teach. Coming back to our belly. Again, Finding our placement, elbows, palms up, toes tucked, knees lifted, scooped pelvis. Once we lift, we're now going to roll onto our side body shoulder. Hips stack, side of our feet, hips are off the floor. Inhale brings us back to our forearms, palms are up. Exhale takes us across to the other side. I'm keeping my hips off the ground as I roll from one position to the other. I'm maintaining, only thing touching, arms and feet. And I'm going to go ahead and add one more layer to this. As I roll onto my side body, keeping those hips up, I want to take that bottom leg and thread it through, reaching out and then bringing it right back, rolling across to the other side. Back bottom leg reaches forward, slides through, and then reaches right back. Again, the higher my hips are, the easier it's going to be to slide that leg through. My hips are roughly on the floor, which that's going to be the hard part of this movement, is getting those hips off the floor. The more we're able to get those hips higher and higher, the easier it's going to get. All right. Now, coming to our back. Hips or heels driving down, scooping up, spread upper back, hips off the ground. As we pull, going into our side, that now bottom leg that is our front is going to slide back and then slide forward. And we can roll back across to the other side, doing the same thing, sliding that bottom leg back and then right back through. And if you notice, we are now at the point where we can combine all of these movements together. This is where we turn it more into a flow, where I can roll all the way through, keep going to the other side as I roll onto my back. And it turns into a nice little core flow that I can kind of play with. All right. So let's come back to our starting point. Feet flat to the floor on our back, making nice big C shapes with our hands, thumbs in the low back musculature, index fingers wrapping around to the front, hands in between the rib cage and the pelvis, and coming back into that nice crocodile breath. Nice slow inhale. See if you can fill up that balloon just a little bit. Exhale. Full expression of that breath. Allow your hands to cinch down to create more resistance for that inhale. And with each inhale breath, see if you can expand that balloon a little bit bigger, a little bit wider. As you're getting a few breaths in, notice how does that breath expand on the right side compared to the left? How does it expand front, low back, out through the sides? And how does it feel compared to the beginning of the session when we started? Hopefully you have a little bit more expansion. It feels a little bit easier, less tense, bigger breath, and a little bit softer shoulders. As you inhale, breathing into tension in the shoulders, exhale, let that tension release into the floor. We can bring hands down, let the palms turn up to the ceiling. Good, nice inhale, exhale. Feel all that tension melt away. And this is a space you can spend a minute up to a few minutes. Nice slow breaths, kind of checking in with the body, noticing where there's tension, letting that tension go on the exhale. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, very slowly get up, take your time, make sure that you're not dizzy or lightheaded before you come up to a sit or a standing position.